Thank you. Welcome. Thanks very much. And I'm just talking about mani pills that I have some here from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So you can also give them to your pets if you have a pet that's dying or that's sick and anything like that. You can give them to other people. So if you'd like, you can come up at the end and I'll give you a few and you can just put them in a little tissue or something like that. I remembered to bring them because I kept thinking I'm going to forget to bring them. Great. Welcome. Oh, great. Okay, great. So we are gonna, go back to our Tara practice. Let's find our way into a comfortable posture. Just refresh yourself with that meditation posture, that spine as extended as possible, as if your sides are long. And just check the different parts of your body. And just releasing any tension you find that you're holding as the body settles in to as comfortable position as possible. And as you do this, keep that normal, natural breath moving through your system. And allowing yourself to relax into this position. Using that breath again, every inhalation, to open up space in any tense places in your body. And with every exhalation, releasing that tension as much as possible. Let's think about our motivation once again. You may have set a motivation earlier in the day. Wonderful. Perfect time to rekindle that motivation. And this is you taking more control of your mind and moving it in a more positive direction. So think about all day long how distractions come and pull your energy away from things you'd really like it to be focused on, or from a manner you would like it to be. We get distracted, and you're not in control of your mind. So motivation comes back, that anchor brings you back to what's most important to you. or to a direction you would like to move in. Something that lights you up, something that makes you happy. In this tradition, again, we're very focused on benefiting all living beings, helping all living beings. And as humans right now, in our limited state, we're going to show up and do the best we can. That's great. If you're just trying your best, working on your mind, fantastic. As a Buddha, you're going to do it perfectly. So think if we could get to that place, we can move along a path that will help us get to that place so we can then unlimitedly serve all living beings. Be there for them, listen to them, act for them in the best possible way every moment you breathe. If you like that idea, feel free to roll it into your motivation and take a moment to set that positive motivation for all the activities of the rest of your day. And just allow the mind now to settle on a normal, natural breath. And if you find yourself distracted, notice what distracts you. Notice thoughts that arise. So one way we really start moving into creating a different world is by understanding the workings of your mind. Can't fix your mind until you really understand how it functions, why you do certain things and think certain things. So just notice the thoughts that are flying through. Look at that endless stream of thoughts. One comes into the space of the mind, rises, grows, creates, it changes, then it goes off, passes away, and another thought comes in with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Another thought and another thought. Look at that stream. As Tibetan Buddhism says, thoughts arising from moments of consciousness, also called moments of mind. So notice how occasionally you give more emphasis to certain thoughts, more focus on them, and then you think them over and over and over from every angle. That type of analytical reflection or meditation. So just for a moment now, notice which thoughts take up more space in your mind and which thoughts do not. Are the thoughts that take up more space, are they generous and loving and kind and gentle? Are they beneficial, healthy thoughts? You're just observing gently. This isn't a judgment on you, good or bad or other. You're just observing how your mind functions. That's all. And what of the thoughts you don't give much time to? What kind of thoughts are those? What small thoughts pass through that don't get a lot of attention? So now, as you let go and watch these thoughts go, just watch them stream along like bubbles floating into space. But there's actually space between the thoughts. There's a space of awareness there. So instead of focusing on the thoughts themselves right now, see if you can find that space and focus on that instead. And stare at that space. So please relax. And slowly, when you're ready, please open your eyes. What kind of thoughts are taking up more space in your mind? And anybody online as well?
Negative ones.
Negative thoughts taking up more space in your mind? Okay, interesting. And what are smaller thoughts that do come through that you don't give enough attention? Anybody notice?
Tiny thought of gratitude.
Tiny thought of gratitude. Okay. So it's interesting, if you have the thought, like we started in motivation, and anybody online that you care to say? What thoughts take up a lot of your mind? Barry, can you unmute? It looks like you're speaking. Yeah.
Crummy thoughts of people, whether they like me or don't like me.
Okay. Yep. We've got thoughts about what people think about me. Yep. So look at this. Have a little look at this for a moment. Is we had a motivation in the beginning. Some people, if it's anchored in Mahayana Buddhism, we could move along a path to full awakening to become a Buddha, okay, for the purpose of benefiting all living beings. Okay. How's that thought in your mind? But isn't it interesting, like you have a little thought like that, my motivation is a little thought. So this is a path of making that a bigger thought, making that you start to merge with that. So you go out and you see how His Holiness the Dalai Lama acts. That's his whole being is there in that thought. Everything exists, every pore, everything comes out of the pores. So this is training. We train our minds. If it's a path you like that concept, you like those ideas, you like gratitude to be bigger in your mind, right? That makes you happy. If it's a positive thing like gratitude, generosity, patience, ethical conduct, healthy conduct, basically, those things make you happier. Okay? But you have to check them out, each one. You want to check them out. So again, if you go back, my waking thoughts, precious human rebirth, the beginning of the lamrim I mentioned yesterday. So just lying in bed, having, you stretch out in your waking moments in the morning, right? And you don't get out of bed right away. Most people don't. Some people do, but most don't. But you start to move in bed and stretch out and you realize I'm awake now, whether it's an alarm or naturally you wake up and you're moving, stretching out in bed. Right? And there's really a dull awareness. So if you're really waking up to the precious human rebirth, you notice this, but often there's just what I wanted to say, taken for granted that your body and mind is relatively functioning, right? You don't even think about it. It's functioning and you're just on to the next thing. Do you ever have a moment that my body and mind is functioning right now? Because one day it won't be. Sorry to inform you. Okay, but it won't be. But the thing is, so if I have some succulents and I just breathe in lying in bed, okay, the fact that you have a comfortable bed, I can't say all your beds are comfortable, but I'm saying you're in a safe bed. You don't have bombs falling on your head. Okay? And I know that when I wake up, I can put clothes on and I have shelter and I have food. Those are luxuries for so many people on the planet. But it just starts with that basic body and mind is functioning. I have a moment where I've woken up and for me, I'm in the Amy life. I get another day in the Amy life. Okay? So that life is really incredibly blessed, my life. And I'm just an average person. It's not like but I'm just saying the fact that I had, loving family and friends, I was able to get a decent education, right? I'm able to be kind of a contributing, positive citizen on the planet. I make mistakes, but I'm basically able to, I'm able to speak, I'm able to think, I can write, there's so many things just in this life. I get another day to do that. And I also have a day in this life, I met the Dharma, the biggest jewel. Sometimes some of us talking about politics right now, okay, people are ruminating through those thoughts over and over and over, okay? So sometimes when I'm with Dharma communities and we start talking about it, and then one of us will say, well, we have the Dharma, okay? There's your jewel, you want to create another world. You have the Dharma, that's a completely other world than what's going on out there. It engages with the world out there. And what we want to do is engage with that world in a more way of gratitude and patience and generosity and hope and loving kindness. And yeah, we're not always doing that. So this is our work is first you just want to look at we're all made up differently. So the first things you want to do is identify your main delusions, your main imbalances. When I mentioned the list yesterday, starting with fundamental ignorance and confusion, you then have an over-exaggeration of a pleasant reality and you get attachment and desire. And then you have an underestimation of what's really out there and you get aversion and anger, hatred. Those are the three poisons. And then it molds into pride, doubt, and wrong views. 6 root delusions, okay? And then they change and grow out. So then from those you get jealousy, forgetfulness, laziness, depression, anxiety. I could go on and on. But right away, when I give that list, and there's things like, if you want to get more detailed, there's spite and belligerence, and but so when I give you the list, 1 or 2, right, popped out for you, and you go, that's my thing. Go after those first. Then figure out learn what the antidotes are, learn how to, and you practice over and over again on your cushion, setting up that place to do that work. It's really, really helpful. And what you're doing is you're analyzing. So if I take anxiety, fear, and worry, a lot of people consume with that. Anxiety, fear, and worry. I have some, in my life, some very, very close family members, very dear to me, and they just worry, Okay, so one of them was a worrier, actually born in Brooklyn. They lived in Brooklyn for a little while. And I used to come here a lot to visit them years ago. So one of them, from the age of 1 or 2, worried. What does a 1 or 2-year-old in this kind of culture have to worry about, right? And I was a new Buddhist at the time. So in observing him and noting this worry thing that was coming out, it wasn't really imprinted on him by the parents at the time, okay? But just seeing how it manifested, and then I was reading a little bit more about karma and understanding, and it was really clear to me that it came in from another life. That it must have ridden in on that mind that came into this little being's body. And it was just interesting how it manifested. And then he had a brother, and a 1.5 year age difference, same parents, same situation, didn't worry about a thing. It's just not. So then you have to look at, there's a whole mind in there with all its mechanisms, all its maneuverings, like your mind. So the main thing is you want to understand your mind. Why do I have this tendency? Why do I have this tendency? And you can change your mind. That's what's exciting about this path. The mind is changeable. And it takes effort to do it. But it's a wonderful thing to make effort in. So the beginning is you're just noting what are the main things for you. So if you have worry, fear, and anxiety, what Buddhism asks you to do with all the delusions is analyze them. Okay? So you need to understand, the first thing is, is it reasonable to have this fear? Think about it. Is it reasonable to have this fear? Name a fear. Anybody have any fears?
Claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia. Thank you. Okay. So if you have claustrophobia, a fear of being in small spaces, panic being in small spaces. Okay. So is it reasonable to have this fear is one thing you ask. So I just ask you, Maureen, is it reasonable? Were you trapped somewhere in this life? Did you have a trauma where you were trapped in a small space?
No, it came from my mother's fear, and I developed it, I think, by watching her be afraid.
Okay, so you watch somebody else be afraid of something, okay? So my mother had a fear, unbelievable fear of heights, incredible fear of heights. She couldn't go down escalators, like that bad, like really gripped in fear. A couple times there was no option, and I saw how we had to take her down the escalator. It was horrible to watch, okay? But I didn't get that fear of escalators. I don't have that. So again, be cautious. Let's check our minds. It didn't come from your mother. It came from your mind, the karma to create, where you're raised by a mother that has a fear of small spaces and claustrophobia. And that you also had a tendency that it had an effect on you. Because your other siblings have the fear?
No.
No. Okay, so this is where we realize it's got to be in my mind then. Again, everything comes from the mind. Okay, but it's also the mind that creates a parent and creates you to take rebirth to these people, to do that dance, to work out additional stuff. So then you say, okay, is it reasonable to have the fear? Not trapped anywhere. Nobody imprisoned you in a small space and kept you prisoner for a long time. But there's got to be a device in your mind that's creating it. So the beginning is as you start to look for the reason, right? And the reason doesn't manifest in a general sense. If I was imprisoned and this was happening, then you're just looking at a tendency. There's a tendency there, a drift in the mind that is just creating one of the things that you tend to have a fear about. Okay, so one of the things you can also work on is if you visualize yourself in a small space, what are you concerned is going to happen to you? So you really want to look at what are other options that would happen to me in a small space. Any thoughts on that, Maureen?
Well, for me, like an elevator, it's a feeling that I can't breathe. Or
Okay,
be handcuffed. Like, even though there's no correlation, I would feel like I can't breathe.
okay. So if you're, so then some exercises you can do, and these are just more general exercises. You're in an elevator, okay? And let's say you're in an elevator and it's half full. It's half full, but the thing is, if you're in the elevator and you're managing to go up the floors and the doors open and you get out, you're obviously breathing. You may feel like you're not breathing and you're not able to breathe, okay? So if you're in that situation, and what you could do is even visualize yourself in the situation, in the elevator, and you're just gonna have to take deeper breaths because the breathing's happening anyway. But when you take a deeper breath and you're acknowledging the fear, and you say, I feel like I'm handcuffed, I'm in prison, I can't breathe, you take a deeper breath, the air is there. The breathing continues. You continue to breathe in the elevator. Because if you didn't, you would pass out probably. Have you ever passed out in an elevator from the fear?
No, but it's actually my mind who's helped me to get over it, as well as it created the problem, but it also has, I'm alleviated of that problem now because of my mind,
So how did you alleviate it?
by asking myself questions like, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah,
And the worst would be I die for some reason. And like, okay. Like it's so I practice being stuck in my mind in an elevator and how I would respond. And then
yeah, great,
I made myself go into the elevator. At first, my kids would hate it. I would stop the number of people who could come in, even though it could take five more. I said, I'm sorry, we're full. So, but that's how I began. And
right.
then now I've worked my mind into thinking, okay, I can do this. And I did the deep breathing and I just visualized like everything is fine. So,
Great. No, that's one of the ways you do it. Thank you. Because I was just going to say, what's the worst thing that will happen? And so what happens is all of these fears that we get, and when you start to ask yourself, what's the worst thing that will happen? The most thing we're terrified about is our dying. And dying with an unprepared mind, that you're out of control, you're in a lot of pain, nobody's there to help you, pain meds aren't working. That's what we're really afraid of when it really comes down to it for a lot of people. And some people aren't afraid of that. Then they have less fears. But the main thing is something like claustrophobia, what I was going to say, visualize yourself in the situation that scares you. Visualize yourself, do it in a visualization over and over and over. And if it's that I can't breathe, you take a deep breath and you realize, oh, I can breathe. I can breathe slowly. And asking yourself, what would be the worst thing that happened? In the elevator, if you can't breathe, you'll pass out. Pass out, people will come to your attendants, they wake you up, you get up. Hopefully you didn't hit yourself too hard. So again, when you start to analyze the fear starts disintegrating. Or you start to realize it's simply just an imprint in my mind, and I have to keep, and so positive stuff starts, and purification practices really help. So one of the things the center has in, I think, January 1st with Venerable Rubina is a Vajrasattva practice. This is our basic purification practice. I'd highly recommend, if you can attend, to learn how to do the practice. I do it every night. It just cleans up stuff of the day. Stuff I'm aware of, stuff I'm not aware of. The fact that I don't have a direct perception of emptiness creates some negative karma in my mind every day. So every day I want to keep cleaning, cleaning, cleaning. If you have specific fears and you can say, I'd like this to keep minimizing my claustrophobia or whatever phobias you have, and you keep doing the purification. And it works on the mind. It really works. Because the other thing is, your other alternative is you're just gripped in it and hanging on to this space. So fortunately, we sometimes come to something I call renunciation, again, represented by the lotus flower on which Tara and the Buddha and all the images sit. An open lotus flower. They can be white, they can be multicolored. It represents renunciation. So renunciation comes from a situation where you get tired enough of your delusion. You get tired enough of your imbalance. So you get tired enough of your fear. And that's when people say, I want to do something about it. I'm going to go see a therapist. I'm going to get hypnotized. I'm going to learn how to meditate. All those things are fine. They can work. But the main thing is you need to analyze what's the delusion. Anger's similar. Anger, attachment, I mean, you need to analyze and figure out what mental factor is it, and I'm underestimating what's really out there. And usually anger is related to you're not getting something yourself that me, myself, and I needed. Situation of the me. So, we look and then you notice, so right now we have a world system and there are some world leaders that make people angry. And I hear all the things, he lies, okay? The news is false, it's not true what happened. And he lies and he attacks people and he does all these things. And so it's very unfortunate that we have a leader that kind of condones that behavior and acts out that behavior. It's not really what you'd want a world leader to do, but sometimes negative world leaders get elected, right? Unfortunate situation for our minds, that somehow my karma's shown up. I voted in the election as well, and my vote was contested. This was my basic, my basic right as a citizen of the United States is you can vote. And we don't vote as much as other countries vote, okay? But I've always voted, I always try to vote, and then to have my vote questioned, and it goes into like at one point in the court when they hauled the person in that contested 424 votes in my county. And the reason is, it was in Pennsylvania, and that's a pivotal state. So the Republican Party got different people to stick up in each county that was possibly a pivotal county and said, we're going to find a way to contest votes. So because I had moved in 2 to 3 years, and they were looking at, reverse postage things of when you change your address again, right? But I was legally registered to vote in my county in Pennsylvania when I voted. So they did this. So fortunately, my county seat is somewhat progressive, and they hauled the person in, they hauled the woman in, PhD, lives not far from me. It's amazing who the Republican Party got. But they went through all this stuff with her about where she got voter rolls, where she got change of address rolls, and it was all just crap, what she was saying. Like it was just, you could see she was put up. But then when they said to her, you could be sued because you're calling these people fraudulent, then she got alarmed. Again, it's a shame we're such a litigious culture like that. That's something that threatens people. But in any way, like I kind of looked at it and was like, this is from my mind, this is coming from my mind. I don't hate her, I felt it was unfortunate for her, because in the end, they really read her the riot act, and they had many people present on a Zoom call. So I was in India, I couldn't participate, but I could watch it. So I watched it, and they had lieutenants from the Navy on, they had doctors, their votes were contested, they had a nurse, they had, I thought maybe they'd want a nun, but I was out of the country, I couldn't participate in that way, but I watched the whole thing, and everybody, and then the judge at the county seat was really harsh to her. I think it was, and she said, we have procedures if you want to do this in the future, but obviously, and they're going to keep doing it, they'll keep trying. So I kind of owned it and was like, okay, that's coming from my mind. How do I deal with this coming from my mind? And you could respond. I right away sent an email when I got the email, and then they put through all the votes but one. So, but I looked at it as coming from my mind. There's no point hating her, because then again, the ripple goes out. Ripple of hate goes out, right? So you have a leader, and my mind helped create that leader. I believe it comes from my mind, okay? So sometimes it's hard to swallow that, okay? But all I'm looking at is, then what can I do? Every day I wake up, so what can I do? On this path, what can I do to become a Buddha quickly to benefit all living beings? Okay, that's my morning waking thought. After my gratitude for stretching out in bed, body and mind dysfunctioning, and then I have a quick reflection on my precious human rebirth. Unbelievable, the lives we have. You got yourself in the room. Our lives are not perfect, I know that. I don't know all your stories, but you got yourself in this room, great. Way ahead. So you have some tools. We have this gem we found called the Dharma. Okay, and our practice is we polish it to make it gleaming, shining, and then Buddha nature comes through. Then you become a Buddha, finally. So slowly, so I had to look at, my own responsibility of my voting history. One time I did something not so okay. So yeah, so then I went, Okay, that's where it's coming. Like I had a direct cause of what that it looked like in this life, a direct cause, but there's many causes. But what you want to do is take the ownership and then ask yourself, what can I do? So I'm going to work on my delusions. So get some clear path on each delusion, because each one has slightly different antidotes. Okay? But the main thing is we have to analyze. So I could see this woman online, the woman who did it. She didn't look bad to me. She could have been a friend of mine. Smart woman. She had a PhD, whatever it's like, so again, it got me interested in, well, what's she about and why would she want to do something like this? Like, it kind of interests me. What is she like? What are her hopes and fears? So through some of this work I mentioned yesterday, how do we dialogue a little better with each other and those we disagree with? What if we can find some common threads? That could be more peaceful on the planet, in my realm. That's one thing, that's on my list. That's one of the things I'm interested in doing. So when you ask yourself and make a list, instead of just railing against the problems, then ask yourself, what can you do constructively? What can you do? Make your list, whatever you want to do, and start to take action doing it. Part of it, for me, would include practice. And the reason is I want to have a balanced mind when I'm engaging in all these things. Really need to have a balanced mind. So I make a list. And then there's some things over here I realize I can't do anything about that. So then I'm just going to let those things go. So it's a matter of how much I engage in news stories, how much I choose to engage in those opinionated negative conversations people are having. I don't really want to be part of those conversations, not for very long, right? And other things you can't control on the planet. I can't end the war in Ukraine as much as I'd like to. I don't have the power to do that. But what you can do is I remember when it first started, we were packing food packages for Ukraine. There's a big Ukrainian neighborhood in Philadelphia. So we were packing packages for people that were coming out and moving to relatives in that neighborhood like that were leaving Ukraine. So there's many things, many ways. Volunteering. There's so many people that need help, whether it's your local dog pound or whether it's your soup kitchen. So many things like that. And what happens is the more you engage in activities like that, the happier you are. Okay? But you have to check yourself. What speaks to you? What works for you? Please check yourself. Okay. And then sometimes you need a little heavier practice. So I want to go back to my practices. We're going to do the Patara practice. And what I want to do is create a little bit more lasting, closer relationship with these deities, simply aspects of the enlightened consciousness, right, to help me a little bit, right? So I spend a lot of time on the road, and I also spend a lot of time alone, and I'm really comfortable doing retreat on my own and things. So for me to consult with friends or ask somebody, what should I do, is I ask in here. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I ask these deities I feel I have some relationship with. Now, it's not like I'm some babbling to somebody and talking, so, it's not like that, but it just feels like you develop that core confidence in yourself, that I'm on this path, I'm engaging on this path, I'm doing it wholeheartedly for all these beings, right? And I'm not anybody special. I'm just going to keep one foot in front of the other, keep moving along. Sometimes I fall flat on my face. Pick myself up, try to glean some information from that mistake so I don't do it again, and I continue forward. And it gives me great confidence, and I feel their energy, that I feel like I can talk to. Rinpoche passed away 2.5 years ago, my main teacher. It was very dramatic. It was a bit of a shock for all of us. Somehow I feel him more with me now, in many ways, so I'm going to ask that inner voice. Something he's taught me about, something he's tried to help me gain confidence in. We want to get the answers ourselves. The Buddhas are simply, and the teachers are external initially, and you can meet with them and talk with them, and they give you some guidance, but they're basically trying to get you independent of them. So you develop that in yourself. That. So beginning for me with gratitude is when I wake up in the morning, having a couple minutes to just think about your lives. So get the negative thoughts out. If you find negative thoughts dominating, because it's a habit, okay, just ask them, excuse me, I have the rest of the day for you. I'm moving you over here. Gratitude. right? And really go into reflecting on the positive aspects of your life. Please name a few. Anybody online? Positive aspects of your life.
Health.
Health? Yeah, that's huge. That's number one. That's a huge one. If you have good health, not everybody does. Health, thank you, Maureen. What else?
Freedom from a lot of addictions.
Freedom from a lot of addictions. And I'm even going to jump on her first word, Donna's first word, freedom. We're one of the freest countries I've ever been in. Okay. Now it looks questionable right now, but we still have a fair amount of freedom. You can worship the way you want for the most part. You can walk around, go anywhere you want. You can go into shops and buy coffees and buy whatever you want to do. You're free to ride the subway. You're free to study this or study that, you know. Some of it's getting a little questionable in some free countries, you know. So one of the things I notice, I don't know if you notice this, but so there's been all these marches for Gaza, Palestinian rights. Absolutely. And what's hard is I don't see marches against anti-Semitism. And there's a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism on the planet. I've been subjected to a lot of it, actually, especially as a child. So like that's very real, and it's very scary to me as well. So so what I find is my sister living in London, and this still happens now, the temples around here, Jewish temples. So there's been guards at the temples for years. And so this year when she went with her sons, I'm from a Jewish background, and they went for the main holidays that just happened. And they were told, do not congregate before or after the service in front of the synagogue, it's not safe. And then the more religious Jews in her neighborhood that wear kippah, yarmulkes, so they all had baseball hats on because they don't want to show that they're Jewish going to the temple. So it's being infringed upon slowly. It's gonna, and when they start asking us to wear, yellow stars, and so I will say for one reason is, in some ways, as much as the Palestinians need a homeland and need a free place where they can live and vote and raise their children, that's the reason that the state of Israel exists, is because of the Holocaust, is one of the main reasons that they gave a place where these people could escape to and not be persecuted. So it's so ironic that they are creating the similar thing that creates, the Warsaw Ghetto and creates the camps and things again. But just being raised in that, and if you're not Jewish, you don't know the background of how if they start doing, because it's looking like Nazi Germany in our country, so if they start infringing, then, as a Jew, I have one country I can go to and be safe, even though you're not that safe there, but it's really, so I don't see these marches against anti-Semitism, unfortunately, which makes me kind of sad because having been subjected to it myself, so it's difficult. But we have incredible freedom in the United States in many ways, and it looks like it's changing a little bit. So then you can go back and ask yourself, what can I do about it? What can I constructively do about it with a good motivation? And try to take action of what's comfortable for you, what's realistic for you. Everybody has a different way they want to do it, okay? But in the morning, waking up with this, that I have health, I have freedom from addictions, I have all these other things that you mentioned. There's so many incredible circumstances you've had. Probably all of us have had some form of education. Some kids in some countries, not possible. They just have to work from the age of 7 or 8. No money in the family. Something in Nepal I find where they need money to get a uniform to go to the school, and they don't have money for that. I'm like, so you need a uniform to go to that school? Things like that. So we've had access to all of that. Incredible. You might have loving family and friends. We have food, clothing, shelter. Just give yourself 2 minutes in the morning. So, and what about your good qualities? How's that going? This is, again, manifesting positive thoughts in your mind that are realistic. You're not an egomaniac, okay? But you probably have many good qualities. Are you aware of those? Do you appreciate them? I bring them up every morning. I bring up some of those qualities every morning in a balanced way, not like I'm some great being. I just bring it up in a balanced way. And people get nervous about this, and they'll say to me, I don't have any good qualities. Really? Absolutely not. You're probably a dutiful daughter, good friend, a good mother, a good neighbor. You work well at your job, you do a good job, good in the community, you recycle. You give money to this charity or that charity, you went to a Dharma class, you read this Dharma book, have a kind heart, care about people. That's a long list right there. Right? So you need to start appreciating that, and what it does is it starts, so Friday night I was talking about a Tibet house. Years ago, some of you remember this, there was a thing you could cross water in. They had it between England and France, and it was called a hovercraft. And it was a vehicle that would cross the ocean, cross water, and they would have an engine that would inflate underneath it. So the whole thing could smoothly go across on this kind of buoyant cushion. And occasionally, if there was a big storm, it would put the engines out and it would lower back into the water. And if the water was rough, then you get tossed. So right now, we have a storm out there, okay? And what you want to do is you want to keep the engines on. That's your practice, and that keeps the buoyant cushion filled with comfortable air so that I can ride out there and I've got my cushion and it covers all the pebbles and all the ruts and all the potholes like that. It also gives you a little bit better vantage point, and if you're more comfortable, then you're better able to open your heart to others' discomfort more and more. So that's what we want to do, is keep the engines on. How do I do it? I want to be alert, I want to do my practice, and I want to reasonably balance that practice. Understanding that I'm really busy, so I can only fit in this much in the morning and this much at night. But when I get a day off, I have a little bit more time. I'm going to read that book. I'll join this book club group. I'll go to the next course at Shantideva. I want to join that. I want to find out a little bit more about the lamrim. So let me look at this. Things like that. Sheila will send out that list that I mentioned so you can have a look at that and look at some of those practices. But again, slowly you work through it. You can't take it all on at once. Be reasonable with your practice. And then what you want to do is put it into bite-sized chunks and try something for at least 2 weeks. Do the same thing over and over for 2 weeks. Okay? Or get some instruction. Write your questions down on the side and get some instruction. You go, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Some of them come with built-in commentaries, some of those booklets. So it's all there, you just read through, right? Can't do the whole booklet in one sitting? Take it over 3 days. Go through a few things, a few pages, and you go, got to go to work, finish, come back a little bit, look at another couple pages. What does that mean to you? Or maybe you go back through the first 3 pages. Slowly like that, break it down. Okay. There's no set thing, you have to do this and do that. Everybody's a little different. Okay. And then if we have some succulents after appreciating our human rebirth, to think about change, impermanence, death, okay? And use it as a little bit, some of my waking thing is, this is my last day. This is my last day. So some people will say, what if this was my last day? This could be my last day. But I really do, this is my last day. How do I want to be on my last day? I'd like to be kind, gentle, happy, like that. So it's not about what you'll do on your last day. And people say, I'm not going to work. Okay, no. So it's how do you want to be on your last day? So look at the little skirmishes you have between people, right? When you're actively dying, they go away. You don't care about those things. What if you let them go now? What if you ask forgiveness from somebody now? Right? Do it while they're alive. It's even stronger. But you can also do it after they passed away. Okay. You want to forgive them. Powerful. Fantastic. Do it now. Don't wait till you're dying. Do it now. Right? While you have more control over your mind, while you're in good health, relatively good health, not in pain. All these things you want to get to. So I don't want to go down like in the middle of an opined conversation, negative conversation about Donald Trump. I'm not going down like that. No interest. So I don't want to imprint that on my consciousness too much now, to have that habitually happening. And then what happens is when you have these conversations with people now, right, you sometimes say something you didn't really want to say. you go, oh, I really, what did they, and then you go into what Barry was saying is, and then what do they think about me? Oh, I must have thought that I wasn't informed, or that I was really being bigoted, or I was really being overbearing, and I wasn't listening to anybody. And I don't need those thoughts spinning in my mind that what people think about me, right? Because if you're trying to show up in the best manifestation of yourself, we can't do it all the time, but we try. If you're at least trying that, trying to do my practice, trying to be a kind person, I acknowledge I make mistakes, I blow up because I'm limited, but I'm trying. You can always say you're sorry, right? And I'm moving along like that. I don't really care what people think. I can't really control that anyway. So I'm not going to spend time thinking about it. I don't need to have that in my mind. It doesn't really matter, right? I mentioned this before in some other classes. A friend of mine who, people send out these holiday newsletters to people. Sometimes they'll send it an e-letter. And he and his wife read a lot, and they put some recommendations of books. And one of the books was, the 365 rules for daily living or something. I never really liked books like that. But anyway, he listed the first couple of things in the book. I thought it was interesting. The first one is, and this is helpful when you think about some of the things going on right now in the world. It doesn't matter, was number one. It doesn't matter. So now, some things do matter. So you're going to assess. And when it does matter, you take action and you do what you need to do. Could be a mundane thing that matters, but some things don't matter. But there you are, hanging on, fighting over it. Let go, you'd be much more peaceful. Much more peaceful. So in the grand scheme of what's going on right now externally in the world, assess again, what does matter? This is I just got home, and then there was this No Kings March. And I remember there was a very, very big march, huge march in Amsterdam right before I left for the Palestinian cause, and 250,000 people came out. Amsterdam it was really impressive. So I went, and they wanted me to stay longer, and I was going to stay longer, and then I saw the No Kings March coming up, and anyway, I had the ticket back, and I was glad to come back and participate a little bit to see what was going on in the States like that, so that was something that mattered to me, so I thought, let's show up at that, and I remember because I had gotten sick just before, so I was thinking like, oh, I should really stay home and rest, but I really wanted to, fortunately it was close to me, so I could just go. So figure out what does matter, take action in a very constructive way, and the other stuff, let it go, it doesn't matter. Okay. So this was number 2 in the book. And this is for Barry, okay? No one's talking about you. Okay?
About themselves.
They're too busy thinking about themselves. We're consumed with me, myself, and I. But we think they're thinking about us. And we think they're thinking about us and talking about us because we're totally blown out of proportion ourselves, or what we think about ourselves. Goodness, it's so tiring. So tiring. If you can just get yourself out of the way sometimes, you'd be so much more peaceful and happy. Okay? So it's a good thing to just remember sometimes nobody's talking, but you get stories going about people. I've mentioned this before, is you walk into a room, you might walk into a room here. People are taking their seats or looking for seats or figuring out where they want to sit in the room. And you might see somebody from yesterday, right? And you walk in the room and you glance, but they're talking to somebody. And you look over and you kind of smile at them, but they don't really acknowledge you or wave or smile. And you kind of limp over to your seat and a little bit of like, they don't like me. But they're already in a conversation the other side of the room with somebody. And you have no idea what's going on for them. They may not want to be in the conversation with the person. They may not know how to get out of the conversation with somebody. They may not like what the person's talking about. They see you walking quickly, but they're afraid to acknowledge not to be rude to this person. And this person's kind of dominating them. You have no idea, but you over there walking in the room started a whole story. They don't like me. They hate me. I'm useless. I'm worthless. Nobody loves me. This always happens to me. Just from what? Some little, again, people aren't that focused on you. They're focused on themselves and their own situations. So it makes it more peaceful to let those things go. Okay, I want to go to our Tara practice. And let's ask Tara for some help. Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Question, yeah.
Sorry. Past lives. When my mom was pregnant, three women, three sisters. They're all pregnant at the same time. I have two cousins. My mom's father passed away very quickly before. Thank you. Is it on? Easy.
And I'll repeat this for people online because I know you couldn't hear yesterday, apparently, the question. So, yep. Okay, so she's talking about when her mom, Jacqueline's talking, when her mom was pregnant with her.
And the three sisters were all pregnant.
They were all pregnant together.
All together.
Okay, so her mom's three sisters, they were all pregnant together.
And my mom passed away. So I'm wondering now, because I live with so much anxiety and it's gotten better yet, it hasn't. And I've been in therapy for a long time too.
And I'm sorry, you're what?
I've been
In therapy. So she suffers from a lot of anxiety and she's in therapy, Jacqueline's saying, yep.
So I'm just curious because that is a traumatic experience that I think my mother and her sisters experienced, losing their father. suddenly.
So losing their father suddenly when they were all pregnant.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I mean, I understand past lives, and I know that it's my karma, but we are affected by our parents, even in utero. I mean,
Yes.
Can that be like a traumatic experience? Because even when I was young, I had a lot of anxiety.
Yep.
I mean, that can affect, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, so she's just asking, does it affect you? So the four sisters were pregnant, and when they were pregnant, their father died suddenly. So she's saying, could that affect the fact that she has anxiety now? Like that. Okay, so the other kids that were born, they have anxiety?
I think my cousin was my girl, the female cousin is well, we're all the same age. She was single. I have three, my aunt had one, and my other aunt had three.
But the ones that were pregnant at the time, there were four of you born.
Yeah, four of us. So
And-
she might, yeah, I think she might.
Okay, and the other two?
My cousin Sal, well, it's myself, Sherry, and Sal. Sal, I think, is fine. I mean, I don't know, but I don't see a lot of anxiety. Sherry, maybe not, maybe it is just me.
Okay.
I know.
So what Buddhism would say, I was just asking if the other four, there's four kids born at the same time. It's kind of neat that they were pregnant at the same time. I find that kind of a neat thing to do, when you're siblings, if you're close family. What Buddhism would say, it comes from your mind. Okay, but again, you're a setup that you're, in somebody that's pregnant at the time when they dramatically, suddenly lose their father and stuff like that. We also have a kind of, what they say, is it a genetic history of, that it can experience trauma from your people being traumatized and things like, but Buddhism would say it comes from your mind. So the fact that you're in that type of people, whether you're Native American and you were obliterated, or you were Tibetans and you were things like that. So, but the meaning, it comes from your mind, and that you're creating the karma to take rebirth in a certain situation. But the anxiety is yours alone. It's not necessarily created by that, because you don't all have the anxiety. So basically, it's just it travels in our most subtle consciousness. That's what reincarnates. And you can certainly analyze the anxiety, and it's great to be in therapy to help and things like that. And you can absolutely get rid of the anxiety ultimately. It's possible.
So you really believe that with all of the trauma that the African American community has gone through with slavery, and you hear about, because I listen to a lot of different programs about that trauma, and that it's in their body and it's in their ancestors, and they have it now.
Yep.
And they're trying to deal, not just deal with it, but recognize that and work with it and release it. Yeah, because I mean, you've probably heard it. And the Indian community, the
Yep.
Native American community. So you really don't think that trauma can.
So she's saying the trauma in the African American community, the trauma in the Native American communities, there's traumas in it's traumatic to be born and to die. That's a big trauma that we've all been through countless times like that. So what I'd say is there is a genetic makeup of, you carry what your ancestors can carry to a degree, but it's contained in the subtle consciousness. It's in your mind. So of course you're going to have hatred as an African American. You could have, not everybody has it, you would have it of seeing ancestors, the whole slave trade, it was just a nightmare that it went on. And America's reaping the results of it now. Because America was so engaged in it, the fact of our violence, especially in some of our inner city African-American communities, is our result of being involved in the slave trade. Like, karma is there. But they would say, Buddhism would say, it's still about what was in your mind to take rebirth in a certain situation, to come back as an African-American person in the United States, to come back with ancestry, or to be a Jew with an ancestry that was ingrained in me about the Holocaust, or Native Americans that went through it, Tibetans that went through a genocide, Rwandans that went through a genocide, and on and on. There's many genocides. So again, let's not use an excuse that, well, my people and this happened, and hold on to a victimization of, because when my mother was pregnant with me, her father, died suddenly. That's happened to a lot of people. Some suffer no anxiety at all. I had a really traumatic birth, apparently. That's all I ever heard about from my mother. So if I needed to be like, well, I can't really function, and because I had this traumatic birth alone for anybody's traumatic. You're squeezed down this little thing. I mean, they say it's a nightmare for the baby. Like imagine, we say it's beautiful, it's a miracle. It is. You get a healthy baby at the end, it's fantastic.
And yet we all experienced it and we're fine now, right?
To some degree, exactly. That's what I'm saying, is people go through all kinds. So make sure it doesn't leave you as a victim, that I can fall back at, this is why I'm anxious, because you probably heard the story all the time from your mother. Not so much, okay.
Not really, and I don't use that as I'm a victim.
Right, no, I'm not saying you do, but but Buddhism still, you have, the hardest part is for us to take ownership that everything comes from the mind. It's just a really hard one for us to own that, to be like, it's not out there, it's not happening out there. It looks like it's happening out there. Look at our country right now. Then I can kind of look at my mind and say, my mind's had a role in this. So what can I do? I can fix my mind. I can't fix Donald Trump or Netanyahu or all that, but I can certainly participate in some activities that I feel might be beneficial. And you have to make your own list of activities that work for you. There's people I know that they don't like to go to protests. No problem then, don't go. I have no issue around that. It's not, you have to do what's right for you, but you can fix your mind and you can get rid of anxiety permanently. So the main thing is just habits of it in your mind. And we get used to that, and we settle for stuff. We go, well, this is how I am. You can get rid of it and be a completely different person. I've seen people do it. So I've got right now somebody in my life, very close, a relative, younger, who had a health scare recently. And it's not over. It's still going on. He's waiting for results. And, there's a CAT scan. So in this whole thing that came up, he called me a few weeks ago, panicked, sobbing. I've never heard him sobbing before, like suffering from extreme anxiety over this. And so we kind of went through, and the anxiety's grown over the years. And I was spending the first 2 weeks, like an hour a day with him on the phone, and just listening to what he was ruminating through. And you ruminate through the worst things that could happen to him. He's going to die as a young person, really. So then I went, and I said to him, well, we're not there yet. Like, you have no idea what this is. But all he could think of was the worst things it could be. But the likelihood is there's better things it could be, and there's more likelihood of that. Like, apparently the worst things is a really small percentage of what he's got. So I said, well, okay, so this is adjusting the thoughts. So the thoughts were only going to hang on to, like, he has terminal cancer and he's going to die in 6 months. It's not likely. It's really not likely. So then we discussed, and then the other negative thing he did is he went online. I know Linda's a nurse. She's going to be like, don't do that. So when you think you have some health issue, don't go online, please. Okay? So so then we discussed that and all the panic around that and what he thought it could be. And then he said to me, do you want to know what I think it is? And I said, no. I said, because you don't know that. You don't have any grounding. So I don't want to hear it repeated, wasting time of something it's not going to be, right? So slowly but what happened is, as a result of this highest level of anxiety, he's always had this history about his health. Then I said to him, can you make me a deal that based on how you're feeling and how you're managing this, that in the future, you're gonna better manage your anxiety from now on, right? He's told me he recently got married, he wants to have kids. How many of you have kids? Right, okay. Now, if you can't manage your own anxiety, don't have kids, okay? Because once you have kids, it is a whole other ballgame. So, but he said to me, finally, out of this renunciation arising, it was too much for him to handle. He wanted to let it go, the anxiety. He said, I can't do this anymore. Good, good place to be. Meaning when you bottom out in whatever your delusion is, and it could be anger, could be attachment, you're done, and you finally go, I can't do this anymore. I had it in a relationship once, years ago, before I was a nun. In a relationship, I would continue to make the same mistake in the relationship, resulting in a fight, resulting in a big blow up, and it was something very dramatic. And finally, it happened again with another person, and somehow I could see it. I'm like, this is what I always do. But somehow they stormed out, and they really left. I remember running to the window, thinking they were just going to come back, and when I ran to the window, and I saw them driving away, like I knew they were leaving, and it really flattened me. And then I remember thinking, I'm never doing it like this again. Like, so something in me gave way where you say enough. And what it is, it's enough to your suffering. That's renunciation. I don't want to suffer like this anymore. I'm giving up my suffering. Giving up my suffering. Okay, so it's not perfect, but I remember I never did relationship like that again. I never made that mistake. Like, I finally got it. So I was so proud of him to say to me, I can't do this anymore, the anxiety. And he's committed to going to therapy. He's found somebody really good. He goes, this is a trait of all these other things underlying. And now that he's married and he has a wonderful partner, and she even said to him, she goes, yeah, because this way you could peel back and really get underneath these other things that cause it to manifest in anxiety about health issues. That's not the real problem, the anxiety about health issues. It's something deeper. And he said to me, I really want to do this. And he's at a perfect age to do it. I said, great, fantastic. So that's like the renunciation when you say, giving up this habit, I'm giving up this level of suffering, and I really want to find a way to get to a deeper level, to undo some of the mechanisms. So I find therapy combined with Buddhism and combined with lamrim meditation, some of the best results I've seen from people when they're really working that kind of stuff, really doing it, really, and acknowledging when the anxiety comes up again. It's not going to be a perfect system, but really getting to some strides with that. Yeah, you can do. Absolutely.